This is Hosting Hosts. My name is Mike, and this is the first podcast where Airbnb hosts pull back the curtain and talk about how they got into Airbnbs, the secrets to being successful, and all the craziest stories and the funniest moments from some of the guests that most people never hear about. So I'd like to welcome to my podcast. This is Matthew, former banker turned into professional Airbnb host. Matthew, how's it going?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
So let's start. Tell me a little bit about your business. Where are you based out of?
Yeah, so my wife and I, we run a management company. So we currently are in Central Florida, but our properties are all managed in South Florida. So Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Woodland Manors. So that's where we have our properties.
Awesome. And what made you get into Airbnb? How did you get started in the business, and why did you get started in the business?
I mean, for one, freedom, right? Everybody wants some sort of freedom financially with your family, kids. I'm extremely family oriented, so I do everything with my wife, my kids, and we'll talk about that in a little bit about how everybody's kind of integrated in the business. I started, it was, an idea, we were speaking about it earlier, how in banking, I would see a lot of people come in, opening accounts and trying to explain what they were doing, how they were in arbitrage and explaining kind of their model, but they didn't know how to explain it. So it kind of piqued my interest. And then actually one day I was watching Grant Cardone. He was interviewing, I forgot his name. I think it was Brian something, Page, I think his name is. And I kind of gave some context as to what I was seeing in the bank when people were opening accounts, and then just started studying, learning, and then I just pulled the trigger and we went for it.
Awesome. How long ago was that?
2019 is when we started.
Okay. And so how many properties do you have?
So right now we have 16 listings.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is one of them we're in right now.
Yeah.
Tell me about this house that we're in.
So this is one of our newest ones. This is the Intercoastal Canal in the back. Beautiful pool. I mean, we're 10 minutes walking to Fort Lauderdale Beach. It's a 3-bedroom, 3.5 bathroom, I believe. Beautiful furnishings. I think it's a $3.1 million home. Yeah.
Awesome. And so what do guests generally rent this house for?
Like the nightly rate?
No. What's the purpose? What are they renting? What are they coming to town for?
People just getting away. They want to be close to the beach, close to the water. We get a lot of inquiries where people ask me if they can park their boat here. So that's generally the type of person that we're getting. Just family oriented. We price for that specific reason.
Yeah.
Not too sure if we'll get into pricing soon, but we like to host families, and so we're extremely family oriented, and that's what we try to attract. And so we basically furnish these properties for that specific reason.
Okay. So where do you market them? Are they only on Airbnb, or do you market outside of that?
Yeah, so platforms like Airbnb, VRBO. We tried Booking.com. We didn't like it too much, so we're not on there. TripAdvisor. This property actually does well on PeerSpace.
Yeah, tell me about PeerSpace. A lot of people haven't heard about PeerSpace.
Yeah, so it's pretty big in South Florida. I've spoken to some people up north, and it's not as popular, but definitely here in more populated places, it does well, because PeerSpace is basically for photographers, videographers. They can rent a property and per hour. So instead of per night or per day, it's per hour. So we do set a minimum, like 4 hours, and they'll come here and do their videography work, shoot products. So we got a lot of people doing products. We've had some video shoots. Some artists have come through here. That's PeerSpace.
Awesome. Do you ever have big equipment on the streets or big vans that you have to deal with?
Yeah, so I've had in one property in Miami, we had, I believe it was a wine company, I believe, and they rented it for 2 days, so 12 hours per day. It was a pretty big booking. And they showed up with their huge U-Haul, unloading. They took like an hour just to unload everything, all the equipment. So that was probably the biggest production we've had.
Nice. Yeah, I know that a lot of productions, sometimes they'll even shut down the whole street. They'll pay off neighbors and just do what they got to do if they're filming a movie. Have you had anywhere they rent the house for a month just to do a TV series or anything like that?
So I've had people reach out. It hasn't worked out yet. But we've had I forgot what channel it was that they wanted to rent it out. sorry, what's that, hip hop, Love and Hip Hop in Miami.
Yeah.
So they reached out to us to rent one of our properties because one of their artists needed a house, like their home, which is a little funny because they rented a condo. The building that they were renting from didn't want them to film, so they started looking on Peerspace and they found our properties. But we haven't really settled on something. But yeah, they
That's awesome. And so I know you said you're a family-run business. You got a team, right? Tell me about the star member of your team and the rest of your team.
Yeah, so my wife is definitely a huge star within our company. She runs the day-to-day operations, so speaking to guests, the calendar, cleanings, coordinating all of that. And so she kind of has her hands in everything. I mostly focus on acquiring the properties and dealing with our partners and making sure that everything is going according to plan. And then we have our niece as well that she does the bookkeeping, so she runs the reports. And for our partners, we give them a monthly report, and she's the one that's in charge of that. And then my in-laws, they're in charge of the maintenance, and they head the cleaning department, so they make sure that everything's clean, working efficient, everybody gets there on time, gets out on time. So yeah, we include our family into everything.
Nice. So how do you guys take a vacation? How do you take a break? Who handles it when you're out?
Yeah, so we're starting to hire a little bit more now and expanding our team. But yeah, I mean, most of this, we automate a lot of things, right? We have a clear communication with everyone. We do have some systems that we work with, some programs that allow us to communicate better and make sure that everything is aligned. And so that helps us. Actually, we're here, obviously, with you filming, but I'm here for Mother's Day as well. My family lives here in South Florida. And then from here, we're actually going to do a vacation. We rented, a small, tiny home in Central Florida by the spring. So we're going to take a week and just, disconnect. And my wife was flipping out a little bit because she's like, man, there's no internet there. Like, what are we going to do? And it's like, thankfully we have everything in place where we can do those things.
So when you guys are disconnected for a week, who's handling all the messages for the guests?
Yeah, so we automate a ton of it. Right, and so we still have our hand in a little bit. I mean, I'm an early riser, so I wake up early and I make sure that everything's in place. And I think one of the biggest things that we've decided to do and implement as a host and has allowed us to grow with guests and have returning guests is a phone call, right? And so we say that goes a long way. Hearing someone's voice, connecting with someone, hearing their voice allows you to hear their intentions, see what type of person they are. And so that alone, that call, even if it's a week prior, they feel comfortable where they're ready to go in. We make sure that they have everything they need. And so when we take a week off, we know that our guests already know what they need to do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. I've got people on my team and they do a lot of my messaging, so the guests are still getting messages from me, but it's really someone else on my team. And when you have multiple people, the guests are getting a message back within 3 to 4 minutes every single time. So my whole team sees it, and the phone calls are my biggest thing that I have my team do. So we do one on the front end and the back end of every reservation. And I was just talking to this business in Charlotte with 45 Airbnbs that are starting to fail. They're doing half the numbers that they did last year before they took it over from the old owners. And they didn't really understand why they were failing. And so I asked, who's doing your calls? And they said, what calls? And I said, well, what's the biggest problem? They said, we don't have return bookings. I go, the calls are how you get the return bookings. When we have someone check out, the first thing is, hey, how did you enjoy your stay? It's their opportunity to vent. They can get everything off their chest. That way, if they did have a 3-star experience, by talking to someone, it becomes a 5-star review. And then it's, hey, let me give you a discount next time you're back in Fort Lauderdale or Miami. I've got 15 other properties, and I'll hook you up at any house that you want. And that offer right there and that follow-up conversation is why we get so many direct bookings. So the calls are super important. It's also great on the front end because then nobody's locked outside the door because they didn't understand how to open the smart lock. Nobody's looking or parking in the wrong place or looking for the house in the wrong street. So by talking to the guests, we save ourselves a lot of headaches at the end of the day.
Yeah, and plus we found that especially managing homes, larger homes, sometimes there's some wear and tear, there's some piping issues or something like that. And so when you have that communication with someone and you build it from the start, they feel free to call you or say, hey, I found this, can you get it fixed? Instead of, going on a platform and ranting or things like that. And so they just feel like an open communication with you. And it saved our reviews, guests coming back, So yeah, I couldn't agree more, man.
So, all right, the calls are one thing. What are, in your opinion, some of the keys to being a super host? What are the most important things?
Communication is a huge one, right? Just communicating in advance. We've had cases where, a house was left a mess, and we'll tell the guest, hey, unfortunately, our previous guest X, Y, or Z happened. So, although it's maybe not convenient for them at the moment, but the fact that you're communicating, they feel safe, they feel comfortable. I think something that has helped us a lot, my wife and I, just in this whole business of hospitality, is the fact that we generally love to serve people, right? We're super hospitable. We love to make people feel comfortable, and so that translates into great reviews and to guests coming back. The communication is also derived from that, and so I think that a lot of people try to get into the business just for money, right? Like get money quick, and the financial freedom, and that of course it rings a bell in people's hearts. But man, if you genuinely love to serve people, if you love to make people feel comfortable, welcome them into your home, then it'll take you a long way, especially in this industry. Because people will feel it. They'll feel that you're being genuine, that you're caring, and those are the kind of comments that we get in our listings, right? We just, for example, we got a new partner, right? And they gave us their house. And one of the things that they told us is that they ran through all our reviews, right? And they were like, man, people genuinely love you guys. Like, and it shows in your reviews. Like, they were hassling us about the percentage that we charge, and they were like, man, but seeing that makes us feel comfortable, right? It makes us feel comfortable that you guys are going to take care of our property, that you care about people. And so I think that has helped us be super hosts and maintain it throughout, the time that we've been hosting and doing this.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, that's it. Something that you feel you're doing better than the other hosts out there, your communication, you're actually genuinely interested in all your guests that are coming to town. And what are you seeing? Are they coming back over and over again to you?
Yeah, so we get, referrals, repeat guests coming back, awesome reviews. They maintain our property. We've had crazy stories that I'm sure we'll get into, but nothing too much that I'm like, I'd never want to do this again,
Right. So, we hear about the good things on Airbnb. What are some of the challenges? What are some of the toughest parts? Obviously, disconnecting might be a little bit tough, like we talked about. What are some of the other things?
Yeah, I mean, disconnecting sometimes. I mean, I'm someone who, when I focus, I get focused. And so, sometimes like late at night, I'll be talking about business. My wife is like, hey, not right now. Like, we're done with that. Or, and so those are definitely keys and things that I'm, as a host, trying to work on, right? And so I think the fact that we love to be hospitable and serve people and love on people and really welcome them into homes, I think the challenging part would be to basically give that and pass that on to someone else. Like, we want someone, once they take over more communication and more of these things, I think just them grasping not only what we're doing as a company, but also the heart behind it, right? And so translating that and putting that into somebody else could be challenging. You never want somebody to call someone out of, hey, I'm just calling you just to make sure that you got everything good. All right, bye. Like, just very cold-hearted.
Right.
But more like how we would do it. Very loving, caring. So I think that would be something that's a little difficult at times.
Yeah. So I mean, look, we all started with our first, and it was a challenge because it's a learn as you go process. So like, what's the one thing you wish you knew when you started that now you know?
Man, the one thing, man, that's a tough one. And you got me there. The one thing I would have loved to learn, I guess, is
do you see any mistakes that new hosts are making? Like, have you stayed at other Airbnbs and you're like, I wish they were doing this, that we do it but they don't?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of people are in it just for money, and the greed of it, I guess, allows people not to treat others right. And so we're big on that. Yeah. And respecting people, their privacy, and just respecting guests, and so I think when I see that, I'm kind of like, turned off by hosts that are like that. But yeah, I mean, I guess what I would have wanted to learn early on is probably pricing. I think that's a big thing. I learned at first we would just want to make every single day booked, and so we learned in our market that might not be the best if we drop the prices too low. And so I learned very quickly that even if I increase the price, we get a different customer and we got more bookings. And so that's probably something I wish I would have learned a little quicker.
So that's an interesting one, because I think that's the big battle, right? Do we lower the price to fill up the days or not? So you're saying keeping the price higher, you got your occupancies up and those people started coming back. So tell me a little bit about why you think that works.
So I think it originally started, the thought of it is because one day my wife and I were looking to go to Naples, and we were looking through Airbnb, looking through all the listings, and just like a normal person would. But I started to see that none of the listings I liked them. The decor, proximity to the water, the host, the reviews. And so my thought was, man, I'm fine with paying more money if I can get what I want, right? And I said, man, if I think that way, I'm pretty sure there's some other people that do as well. And so we said, let me try it out. I raised my prices, and sure enough, we got people that were thinking the same way. I'd rather pay more money if I can get the right host, the right property, the right decor that I want, and I'm willing to pay more for it. And so that's how I was, and I figured more people were.
And you're 100% right on that, and Airbnb agrees with you, because they tried to implement a feature. They asked their customers, what's the number one feature you want, right? And customers said, we want to be able to sort by price. We want to be able to see the least expensive property. So they did a test group, and for a bunch of users, they let them sort by price. What ended up happening is people ended up booking the cheapest Airbnbs. They ended up having horrible experiences with bad hosts that didn't care. They couldn't get into the properties. They weren't cleaned properly, all bad communication, everything was wrong. And those people ended up quitting Airbnb and never coming back. So quickly, the CEO of Airbnb, and they talked about this in press conference, or not press conferences, but just interviews. And they said, people say they want the lowest price, but what really they want is the best experience. And they're much more willing to pay for a good experience, so they'll keep coming back over and over again than they are to save a few dollars and be miserable for 3 or 4 days wherever they're staying.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so we learned that just our own experience looking for an Airbnb.
Yeah, and I've noticed it too, that as a super host, and I see other super hosts, as soon as we post a new listing, it goes right to the top of the search results. It gets fully booked up with no history, because Airbnb is promoting the hosts that have those 4.95 reviews, and they're just crushing it on their platform. Interesting. So is it worth starting an Airbnb business? What are your thoughts to someone? There's a lot of people that are looking to do this.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think if you're genuinely interested in hosting people, sure. If it's just a quick buck, I mean, like you mentioned, I was in banking prior to this, and I was a business banker, and I saw a lot of businesses, and I quickly realized that it's not difficult to make money, right? I've seen people make money off the smallest things. I've seen people make money off large things. I've seen a small business. I've seen them grow from 100,000 a year to 11 million a year. I've seen a teacher go from doing that type of revenue, and so I've seen so many people that can prosper with an idea, right? And so it's not really hard. I think if you work hard, you put your mind, you focus to it, you can do it. But I think if you're going to be a host, I would recommend people to genuinely want to host people, right?
Yeah.
Don't do this just because of money. Just don't, you can sell water on the street and make some money.
That's true. Do you feel like it's hard to, a lot of people think they have freedom with hosting, but in my mind, you have freedom, right? You get to kind of control your schedule, but at the same time, you also have very limited control because you're 24/7. I've gotten calls at 4 a.m. We've had to kick out groups in the middle of the night, have even police come and stop a party occasionally, and that's a middle of the night call that nobody wants to deal with, or a smoke detector goes off at 1 a.m. and you got a call for that. Do you feel like that part of it makes it a little bit more difficult, or how do you trade off the 9 to 5 that you used to have for the 24/7 that you're in now?
Well, I think, like I was saying, I think because I generally like to welcome people in, so I don't see it as something difficult to take a call. It's not work. Yeah. So it was difficult going to work in the morning at a specific time, and the funny thing, like you say, now I wake up even earlier to get these things done, because I want to make somebody feel welcome. So I wake up early at a specific time, right, to make sure that this person is fully set to enjoy their stay. And that my wife is the same way, and our entire family is, right? And everybody that works for us has the same type of heart. And so so anyone looking to get into it, I would say, have that type of vision or that type of heart towards people. It'll help you, because then you're not gonna want to pick up the phone because you're gonna be like, oh, why am I picking up this phone at this time? You know, if you don't really care about people.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk about some stories. So I know that, you know, as hosts, most people never hear kind of what goes on behind the scenes. So what's the biggest booking you've ever had? How much dollar-wise most you've ever seen from one guest?
I'm trying to close one now. Hopefully we do this weekend. That one would I think it's 30,000 for December.
30,000 for 1 month from one customer.
For one customer,
okay.
Yeah, in December. So we're trying to get more off platform, and this one would be one. So we're doing a lot of marketing in that, and so. But to date, it's probably our most recent one, which was 18,000.
Yeah, I think that's mine as well. We had a 3-week for 18,000, and just a family coming to town.
Yeah. It was actually a property in Coconut Grove. It was a 3-story villa, 18,000, 2 weeks, 14 days.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing. And so, all right, you have some big bookings. What's your biggest fail? What's the biggest failure you've had, or biggest mistake you've made? Anything ring a bell?
Probably our first guest.
Your first guest?
That one's like
I think my first guest is mine too.
That's engraved in my mind. When we first started, we were doing arbitrage, and we put all the money in. I mean, at that time, I was dead broke, like had nothing. My son was just born. You know, my wife and I didn't have anything saved or anything, and so we put money into furnishing the place. We got started. You know, watched a bunch of videos, super hyped. You know.
What kind of place was it?
It was, you know, a 2-bedroom. 2-bathroom apartment near Sawgrass Sunrise, right near the mall. We picked that part because it's kind of interesting. There was an owner, a host that was hosting 5 apartments there, and I literally told my wife, I saw the listings and I was like, I guarantee I can outperform this owner, this host. 5 listings, years doing it there, and I'm like, I'm the new guy, but I guarantee that I can do it. Just simple things in the listing. We outperformed them, but our first one, it's engraved in my mind because we started. I didn't think we would get a booking right away. I didn't even have internet in the place. The TVs weren't connected. There were so many things that were wrong in the property, and it wasn't ready. And I remember they booked, and they were going in that same night. And I was staring at my seat, and like I failed. I mean, I just started, and this guy's gonna leave a bad review. We're gonna call Airbnb. He's gonna hate us. Like, oh my God, we failed. I was like, I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna go there right now. I'm gonna connect everything. Like, I was like, no. And thankfully, you gotta think quick on your feet, being a host. As I'm sure you have plenty of stories.
So what'd you do? Did you set up a Wi-Fi hotspot for them?
No, I mean, I called them and I was like, look, we just launched. You know, our internet's getting connected tomorrow. Are you staying? How long are you staying for? Like, actually, I was gonna ask you if I can stay an extra day or two. And I was like, you know what? I'll give it to you for free. You know, and that communication, like we were speaking about before. Yeah. Saved it. It was our very first review, 5 stars. Loved the place, and thankfully it went well at the end. But yeah, it was definitely freaking me out because it was the first person in the middle of the night. I didn't know what to do. You know, I didn't have a mentor or guide or anybody to help me. And like you said, you know, you learn as you go. And
yeah, my first one was like that. It was this girl. She seemed sweet. Just wanted to have some family over, so I thought. And my first Airbnb was a new construction. I was building houses at the time, and you know, it was listed for sale. And I thought to myself, why don't I put it up for rent? See if we can get someone in there, make a little bit of money while we're trying to sell the house, and show it in between bookings. So we got some rental furniture in there, and nobody had ever stayed in this house, ever slept there before. So we decorated it, furnished it, brand new countertops, brand new fridge. And when we came to check it out, it was, the fridge was dented, the countertops were chipped, there were liquor bottles everywhere, the guests vomited in the bathrooms. It was a nightmare. And the worst part about it was, I was like you, I was just getting started. And so I was ready to hire a cleaner, but I hadn't hired one yet. Yeah. And there I was, cleaning my first property, and really, regretting a lot of life choices in that moment as I was cleaning up someone's vomit. And my first, you know, group that I probably should have vetted and filtered, but they had no reviews, and I didn't know to ask certain questions. And it was a fun first experience to kind of dive into Airbnb and have that horror story.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Yeah,
we've had some crazy stories. I mean, in that apartment, I remember the first person that smoked. Like you said, I was a banker, so I was working. My wife wasn't at the time, and it was, I mean, I don't know if we still have the video or pictures, but you could see her scrubbing walls to try to get the nicotine off of the walls with like a chemical. And so we've gone through all of that, right? We've learned and we've grown from it, and so yeah, man, it's been a wild ride, but we love it.
So have you ever had to kick out a group?
I've had to kick out one guy.
Just one?
One guy, yeah. I mean,
by himself or with?
No, it was him and his family. It was actually so. We have a property here in Fort Lauderdale. The neighbor, well, the guy in front of the house, I guess his house flooded, and they needed a place to stay. And they knew that we were renting out, so they walked over. They spoke to us, and we were like, "Yeah, sure. You know, direct booking. This is how much we'll charge you." Perfect. Everything was fine. They were there, living their life. He was going to work while they were getting their house situated. But then I was like, hey, it's taking longer. We need to extend. So I was like, all right, cool. Like that's fine. We had the vacancy in that one unit. It's a triplex. And I remember he wanted to extend, but then he started delaying the payment. So it got to the point, long story short, he was like not paying us. And so we do everything legally. We do everything the correct way, which I would recommend anyone getting into this to do it for this particular reason. And I told him, I was like, look, if I don't have the payment by this, you're already a day late, and we just caught him lying about a lot of things.
Yeah.
I'm showing up with the cops and we're getting you out. He's like, no, I'm a tenant. They pull that whole card. And I was like,
what did they pull out? A reservation from Airbnb?
Well, originally it was, but we have everybody sign a short-term rental agreement. Credit card authorization form. So long story short, we pulled up with the cops. I showed him, hey, this is a licensed short-term rental. This is our agreement. He stepped past it. He hasn't paid. I want him out. And at first, actually, the cop was brand new to Florida.
So they didn't know the rules.
So he was like, no, this is a tenant. You got to take it to court. And I was like, look, man, and he was like, look, I'm new here. I was like, that's fine. I understand. But if a hotel calls you, this is the same situation. I'm licensed with the state. He called his supervisor and they were like, yeah, man, if he's licensed, you got to get him out of there. So, the cop was like, you want him out now? And I was like, I want him out right now. And so, yeah, we got him out.
Did the cop have to physically pull the guy out? What happened?
No, the guy, the guy tried to act tough. Like, no, I'm a tenant, you don't have rights. I have tenant rights. And the cop was like, actually, you don't. And so he's like, look, either you remove your things now or I'm going to have to get you guys out of there. The guy was like, oh, okay. So he got everything out smooth, went his way, and we were good, So yeah, I think that's, as long as you do everything correctly, it's a smooth process here in Florida. I don't know any other states.
Yeah.
But here it was that simple.
We had a crazy one, literally crazy one where my cleaner shows up at 10:30, checkout's at 10, and there's somebody in the house, and for starters, he thinks it's a woman, but it's not. So this leads into the story. So he gets in, and he walks in, and this person is in the kitchen cooking, watching TV, smoking, and says to my cleaner, nah, this is my house. I've just been out of town for a few months. I finally just got back. And my cleaner's doing one of these and looking around and saying, all right, I know this is not your house. So I get the call and I'm like, I'm on my way. I call the guest and they're like, oh, we checked out at 8. So I'm checking the cameras and I see right around, 9:30, I guess the guests had left the front door unlocked when they checked out. This homeless person, it was a man wearing a bra, comes in and walks into the house, just walks through the front door, just checking front doors on different houses, I guess, and sets up shop. And so I come over, I'm there at 11, and call the police. Police are there by 11:30, and police drive up, and I said, look, we got to, I don't know if it's a burglar or a trespasser, I don't know what you want to call them, but we got someone in the house that needs to go. And they're like, well, can you prove this is your house? And I pull up my phone and we got the doorbell camera. I go, well, this is all of us on camera right now in front of the door. Yeah. Here's me unlocking the front door with my app. Go get this guy out. And this guy gets taken out in handcuffs. And then they ended up finding 3 wallets in the upstairs. I guess he'd been breaking into cars and stealing people's wallets. So we called the people whose drivers looked him up on Facebook and hey, we have your wallet. They were so grateful to get their stuff back. But and the craziest part about that story is I thought this guy was going to go to jail, right? I thought, all right, he broke into someone's house. Not that I'm telling people how to commit crimes here, but because he said he thought it was his house.
No way.
It wasn't a felony. It was a misdemeanor, trespassing kind of, or something like that, right? Very small crime, almost like an accident of walking into someone else's house, not breaking and entering.
Which I have a story about that.
So they just let him out the next day. right? I think he was in jail maybe that one night, or maybe not even that night. So I'm real mad. I call the prosecutor and the police officer. I'm like, how are you going to let this criminal back out on the street? He's going to come back. And what do you know? A day later, the guy comes back. Luckily, the door is locked this time. You see him on the cameras. He tries to open a window. That doesn't work. And he decides to take a nap. So he falls asleep on the front patio. And one of my neighbors, who didn't know about the thing that happened the day before, calls the police and says, hey, there's some homeless guy sleeping on the front patio of this house. Luckily, I didn't have a reservation at the time. And another police officer comes and just shoos him away. And then I called them mad again. I'm like, the second time he tried to break into my house, and you're just gonna let him go? And they told me he had an 8-page rap sheet. I said, an 8-page rap sheet, you're gonna let this guy go? They go, that's not that long compared to some of the stuff we see.
Oh my God.
I'm like, all right.
I had something similar. I mean, I have two stories, but what you're saying, somebody sleeping on your porch. We have a property that's really near Miami Beach, and we'll never forget, man. One day, we checked the camera because I check cameras every morning, right, to see if anything happened the night prior. I'm not like glued to cameras, but we just skim through it just to make sure everything's okay. And so in Miami Beach, it was during a festival, forgot which one, and man, we see this girl come into our driveway. There was nobody there, no reservation. Come into our driveway, and then in the morning we see her leaving, and I was like, who is this lady? Like, what happened? And then whatever, we forgot about it. Again, it happens the next day, right? And then we're like, bro, what is this lady doing? You see her with her purse, and then come to find out, our cleaners go, and this lady was sleeping in the house. The laundry room is outside under, like, covered, and she was sleeping in the laundry room, just urinating in a bucket, like putting her feces, in a bucket, in a bag. And then apparently she threw one of the bags over our gate, and it landed on the floor, like splattered everywhere. Like, this homeless lady just using our laundry room to urinate in a bucket. And we were like, oh, what is it? Like, what do these people think? Like, you just randomly go up to a house and like check doors, like what are you saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy that someone would even think to do that, you know. But
and some of them are smart. We had one where, man, I was traveling internationally. I was in Switzerland. I got a call at 4 a.m, and it's my guest, and he's a big guy. He's a 6'4" guy with his wife and his 2 teenage kids. And he said, "There's someone in the house." I'm like, "What do you mean there's someone in the house?" There's someone in the house right here. He's standing here, 10 feet in front of me. He's saying that he's got a VRBO reservation, and I had this house. It was pretty new, only on Airbnb. I knew I didn't have VRBO listing, so my first thought was maybe somebody duplicated my listing and put it on VRBO just to make a few bucks and, you know, fake listing. And this guy's saying that he's got this reservation for this. It's a 6-bedroom home. He's saying he's got a reservation for a 1-bedroom. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Well, show us a reservation, right? And I'm trying to get him on the phone. I said, look, I'm the host, I'm the owner. You got to get out. Like, we'll resolve this, but only once you're outside on the front porch. And he's refusing to leave. And my guest, who's a pretty big guy, is like, I hear him on the phone. It's like, sir, if you don't get out in the next 30 seconds, I'm going to throw you through that door. And so this guy walks his ass out the house, and I get on the phone with him, and he doesn't have a reservation. He's a homeless guy. He just, and I checked the cameras, and the door was locked. The alarm was on. So the guest had the home mode on the alarm. So, you know, I'm on the phone with my guest. I'm like, look, the alarm wasn't triggered. The door wasn't, I have a smart lock that tells me if it was even unlocked or opened. I said, the door wasn't opened. And I'm looking at the cameras, and I see him go to the door, check the door, it's locked. And then somehow he's in the house. I think what he did, I don't have an angle from the camera. I think what he did, because I have a doorbell camera, I think he opened the window. And he climbed in through the window on the front porch, and next thing you know, this guy is in the kitchen, looks over, and there's a guy standing there. And he was a crazy homeless guy. And the next day, he, you know, I had him call me, so I actually got the guy's number, and then he started acting real crazy on the phone. You know, like, I know you baited me to come to this house, so you could, and I'm like, I'm in Europe right now at 4 a.m. dealing with this, and somehow my guest gave me a 5-star review, and then went to another property and gave me a 5-star. So like, that didn't deter him, but he is, you got to be careful sometimes with these guys.
I had probably our wildest one was recently, kind of something similar, where we launched a new property in Miami, One of our partners, he has multiple properties with us, and I think it was like midnight. Man, I get a call and I'm like, is this the guy checking in? Because we haven't heard from him. So I pick up the phone and he's like, hey, he's like, someone's in your house. And I'm like, what do you mean someone's in my house? He's like, yeah, there's a family just sitting in the living room. And then he's like, I'm like, what are you talking? You know, I'm half asleep and I'm like, oh my God, bro, I gotta go over there. I'm gonna have to kick someone out. I gotta call the cops. I gotta show with the license. Like, he's like, yeah. He's running away. He's like, I just opened the door with the code. I went inside and there's a family sitting there.
This is your guest,
My
just
guest.
trying to check in.
And I hear the girl in the background. She's like, you double booked. You double booked. You know, they're going crazy. I'm like, no, I didn't double book anything. I'm like looking at the reservation. I'm like, bro, what is this guy talking about? And then come to find out, our guest goes to a house. He put the wrong address, right? He put it off by one number, so he was a street over. Goes to a house that looks very similar to ours.
Also an Airbnb.
Also on Airbnb. The guy uses the code that we gave him on the door, and it works. And there's a family sitting in the living room. And the family comes out, and they're like, what are you doing in our house? Whatever. Who are you guys? They're like, look, I have a reservation for this house. And I guess the owner, the host or whatever, they were like, because they rent a house in the back. They look at it and they're like, no, that you're a number off. It's the street over there. He's like, yeah, but I used my code. The guy's like, what's your code? And he tells him, and he's like, that's our code too, because that's my date of birth. And we were like, I'm on the phone and I'm cracking up at this point. Like, but I was having a heart attack at first because I'm like, bro,
Yeah.
who's in my house? Like, who's there? Like, we have a squatter. Like, what the heck happened? And the guest starts cracking up, and he's like, there's no way this happened. This is hilarious. Like, how is your code the same as mine? Like, and so it worked out. He gave us a 5-star review as well. But the crazy thing about it, he was actually in town looking for properties for short-term rentals. So we connected him with a couple people, and we formed kind of a relationship. But yeah, that's probably our craziest story.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So have you had any guests that have caused damage? A lot of people always ask about that in the party houses or.
Yeah. So I think the biggest ones, I mean, we've learned to kind of deter people that try to do parties with a phone call and different things. I think the most recent guests that we've had in our villa in Miami, it was pretty wild. They caused some damage. Nothing crazy. Just some damage in like pipes, like we had to unclog some things. So we recently in Miami had the World Classic for baseball, and so one of the baseball players, his manager, rented our place, our villa, obviously because his player is playing. He's a big name in baseball, and the manager's staying there. We go inside. He calls us prior, and he's like, "Hey, your toilet's clogged. You know, I don't know what happened, whatever." So our cleaners go in there. I mean, I can show you pictures after this, but our cleaners go in there and we see little baggies everywhere, right? He was snorting coke. He was doing drugs everywhere. And then our cleaners go into the bathroom. Sure enough, the toilet's clogged. It's clogged because he was throwing the coke bags down the toilet. And so we get our plumber out there. He unclogs it. And bunch of condoms, coke bags coming out. And he had to rip out the toilet. He had to really put a snake on there and get everything out. And so, yeah, I mean, that's probably the biggest damage, if you want, you know. Yeah. But we've been pretty good with our team getting, you know, people that are partying out there and things like that. But that's probably the biggest damage we've had.
Okay. What about interesting guests or celebrities?
Yeah, so celebrities. Probably this house. This house we got rented by a Mexican singer, Ninel Conde, I think her name is. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know her too well. Like, I'm not looking into that. But she rented our house. She's shooting a reality TV show, and they wanted to use this house as like her home, which is why I was telling you the front carpet here. We had to get it professionally cleaned because she has a dog.
Okay.
Apparently, she brought the dog without us knowing, and it urinated on our carpet. But that's one of them. We've had.
I heard besides Airbnb, VRBO, and PeerSpace, your house might be featured on some adult sites.
Yeah. So we've had some guests that were OnlyFans models, and come to find out they did some filming in our properties.
Like you said, it's a family-run business.
It's a family-run business, and they felt comfortable to share it with the world. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we've had people film that type of content in our homes. We've had that type of content outside. I guess they want to do like outside shoots. We've had a bunch of, I don't know her name, but there's a famous like IG model here in Miami. I forgot her name, but she used to book our property a lot just to take pictures of herself and do her own thing. I think she dated some basketball player in the NBA. But yeah, she would book our place a lot as well just to do her shoots. We had Ninel Conde here. We've had Shark Tank film at the Miami Beach one.
Okay.
For like business, you know how they do the intro like this, like, oh, I'm a business owner, I do this. And
so have you seen your houses on any TV shows or movies?
I've been trying to find that particular like video. I haven't been able to, but I know it was them, just their description of what their TV show did.
Yeah.
But yeah, they filmed, I remember, and we looked at the camera just to make sure, and yeah, it was like a full blown production of them interviewing a business owner, you know. So yeah, that's, and then the NBA Wives or Miami Wives,
Basketball Wives, that one.
yeah, that one, they want to book it. We haven't closed and settled on something, but that's another one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I remember seeing an ad once for one of my houses in a carpet cleaning commercial. And I saw them just popped up on Facebook, and it was the front of my house. I'm like, that looks familiar. Yeah. And it was just, you know, the carpet van rolling up, and they like brought in their roll of carpet, so they were fake cleaning carpet because we had hardwoods.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've seen, so we got a lot on Peerspace. We got a lot of content creators, photographers. I mean, I've seen their commercials for it. Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't say it's like a huge brand name. But they're up and coming brands like here in South Florida, you know, the United States. But yeah, we've seen those. We've seen those. It hasn't been like I'm waiting to see this Mexican artist when she comes out with hers to be like, wow, that's the property, you know, because she filmed here for a day. So yeah.
Awesome. All right. So I mean, let's wrap it up. What are kind of your hopes for business? Where do you see yourself going with this thing?
Yeah. So I mean, we're definitely looking to expand. Within South Florida first, and then we would love to go international. You know, we have some family friends that live in like Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, those areas. But you know, we're always cautious about it first. Going into a market like that, we do a lot of research, but we're definitely looking to expand in South Florida and add more partners. And we've done a great job at it so far. You know, slowly but surely, we're not looking to kind of boom right now. You know, we really want to take care of our partners. Like I shared, our heart is always to be extremely involved in welcoming guests and taking care of our partners. And so we are growing shortly, but I think future-wise, those are markets that we're looking into, and we have been, and hopefully soon we'll do something there.
What's the best way for people to find you?
Yeah, so our IG, you can look us up on, it's Tilla Stays, so TILAH Stays. Our website as well, tillastays.com.
And what is Tilla?
So growing up, people for some odd reason have always never called me by my first name, Matthew. They've always called me by Mantilla, my last name. For some reason, coaches, teachers, friends. And so they've always pronounced it Mantilla. The correct way is Mantilla. But so we grabbed Tilla from the end of it, and we just we ran with it. So yeah.
Awesome. All right, Tilla Stays. That's where you can find Matthew and his properties. Thanks for coming out today.
Appreciate it, man.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.